I was just trying to work out how old I was when the war started. I was born in 1925. The war started in 1939, so I was 14 years old. That's right. And the Battle of Britain started a year later in the summer of 1940. And at that age, I was obviously at school. We lived in London, and I can remember very clearly. I was a messenger for the air raid wardens, and I used to cycle around with dogfights going on overhead, and bits of shrapnel falling down. And then, of course, in September, that was the Battle of Britain. In September, the Blitz in London started, and we were right on the path of German bombers coming in from the southwest. And I have to say, from my point of view, it was quite a scary time, but actually it was also a very exciting time. We had a shelter built in the garden, and I have two sisters and a brother, so we were six of us, and we had bunks on either side of the shelter. And when the raids got really bad, we used to go in there and spend the night in there. They were, at that age, for me, very exciting times. You're indestructible at that age. So we went out in the garden, and because I was an air raid warden's messenger, I had a tin hat and gas mask and all the usual rubbish. So it was all right to be out in the garden with a tin hat, or so we thought. So yeah, they were very exciting times, actually. And I remember during the Battle of Britain, because we were afraid we were going to be invaded at that time, my dad was in the Home Guard, or Dad's Army as it's called now, or was then, I say Home Guard. And I used to make Molotov cocktails, which sounds stupid actually if you think about it, but what we had were bottles, and we'd fill them with petrol, and put a piece of cotton wool at the top, and then with a glass cutter we'd make sort of scores down the side of the bottle, and we had all these stacked up in the garage. And the idea was that if a German tank came past the front door, which was highly unlikely, it'd probably go through the house actually, we would then throw these stupid things at the tank. But that was the sort of attitude back in 1939, 1940, 41 and so on, because we had nothing else to be hopeful about. And then I went to a school called Pangbourne, where I was an R&R cadet, Royal Naval Reserve cadet. I learnt seamanship and navigation and things. And when I was 17 and had done my school certificate, I became immediately a midshipman R&R, because I was automatically drafted into the Navy. So at the age of, I was still 17 then, and I went off and did a stint of about a month, I think, in Greenwich College, and then at Whale Island learning gunnery, after which I joined my first ship, which was a battleship called HMS Howe, which was part of the Atlantic Fleet and based in Scapa Flow. Nothing very exciting happened as far as HMS Howe is concerned. And then in November, December, I think it was, in 1942, I was drafted into HMS Ajax. And I went in there, because I'd learnt navigation at school, I became what was called the navigator's tankie, which is actually the navigator's assistant. And this was quite good actually, because all my action station time was on the bridge. So I knew what was happening, and I saw various sort of secret documents which actually came into the ship and were not for general circulation. So I think it was January, just after Christmas, we sailed down to the Mediterranean, because I think even at that time it was realised that this was going to be a ship which was going to be involved in D-Day, the Normandy landings, and we really went out to the Mediterranean, partly obviously to support the war activities which were going on there, but also to practice gunnery. So we did various operations in the Mediterranean, and because it wasn't ideal for practicing gunnery, because it was quite often rough seas in the Mediterranean, we went down the Suez Canal to Port Said, and a bit further down the Red Sea, and we practiced gunnery on the sand dunes and things. And actually we became very good at it, but I don't think we quite realised how good we were until D-Day itself. So after we'd finished our stint in the Mediterranean, we came back to I did one thing actually, because we were supporting the landings in Anzio in March 1944. And we were actually in Naples when Vesuvius erupted. And I actually have a photograph which was taken by an official photographer, and it was the main page in a London magazine in black and white, because colour hadn't been invented those days, well, not as far as photographs are concerned. And there is HMS Ajax and HMS Orion, which was a fellow cruiser, tiny little ships in Naples Bay, with this huge, great explosion of Vesuvius in the background. Because at night, to get away from enemy air raids, we would shelter in the cliffs of Sorrento, and then in the daytime we would come out and we would have to hose the decks down to get rid of all the ashes and so on which were there. And we were there purely to dash up to Anzio to support the landings there. In probably April, I suspect, we went out of the Mediterranean and up to Scapa Flow, and that's where we started to get ready for this operation, which we knew was going to happen, but we obviously didn't know anything about. In 1944, I suppose about June the 3rd, I think, because D-Day was supposed to happen on June the 5th, and on June the 3rd, we started our journey down to the south coast, and we were going down through the Irish Sea on June the 5th when we heard that it had been cancelled. So we did a complete circuit of the Irish Sea and got back off the Scilly Isles very early in the morning of June the 6th. No, it would have been in the middle of the night actually, because then we had to sail across to round about Portsmouth, where we picked up some of the rest of the cruisers, and as a flotilla we crossed the Channel. When I went on watch at 4 o'clock in the morning, which was the morning watch, and I came up on deck and onto the bridge, and I mean the sight was amazing actually, because it was middle of the summer, so you know, the daylight was sort of little enough there to see that on either side of us there were landing craft, and we were steaming down through the middle of all these landing craft. And as we got closer to the Normandy coast, we could hear the bombers going overhead, and the bombs being dropped in Normandy. And at about 5:15, before the landings took place at 7:25 off Gold Beach, we went into Gold Beach and anchored offshore. And there we opened fire on one of the main gun batteries, which were obviously going to be combating the landings. It was a battery of 4 6-inch guns in solid concrete emplacements up on the cliffs, and we had that as our first target. We took out the first 2 of the gun turrets within about 20 minutes. You couldn't knock a gun turret to pieces with a 6-inch shell, which is what we had as well. It had to go either through the gun opening or very close to it. And in fact, when I saw the remains of these gun emplacements afterwards, we had actually gone literally through the gun turret opening. So the other 2 guns we put out of action, and these fire again later in the day, but again were finally destroyed. We spent probably 3 weeks off the Normandy coast, supporting the army, supporting anything that needed doing, whether it was, we had observations officers ashore, and they would tell us there's a tank here which is holding up our forces, destroy it. So we were doing that all the time. But D-Day itself, I mean, it stuck in my memory. It was very strange actually, because every 6th of June after, it was like an electric shock through my body. It was quite strange actually. It was so embedded in me that it was something I could never forget. Although I wasn't consciously aware of it during the year. It was just on that one day, June the 6th, it was not like Christmas or birthdays or anything of that sort. It was very, very strange. And then it was the things that I remember most, because I was on the bridge, I watched everything, was the noise, first of all. I mean, staggering noise before the landings took place. 5:25, 5:15, when the bombardment started from the Navy, and also the Air Force were there dropping bombs. Everything was happening. There were rocket ships offshore. The noise was absolutely amazing, and that's one of the things that I remember. I spent 3 weeks off the coast of Normandy and supporting the landings. Final task on Normandy was off Sword Beach, where our armies had got held up by German resistance at Caen. So we actually helped to destroy part of Caen. And when I've been back to Normandy since, I've sort of apologised to the French for the damage we did. I mean, we destroyed a city, we destroyed houses, we killed people, and they said it doesn't matter. The one thing we were grateful for was that we were liberated, and for them, they were in a bad state actually in June 1944. The Germans were getting much tougher with them. They were starving, and so they actually are still amazingly grateful for the fact that the landings took place. After Sword Beach, we actually went back to Portsmouth once to get re-ammunition, because we'd run out of ammunition after the first few days. We went back to re-ammunition, then came back again, did it all overnight, there one day, back the next early morning. And after that, as far as I'm concerned, we went round to the south of France to support the landings there. And at the age of 18, I think, I was drafted into a Hunt-class destroyer, HMS Eastern, as the navigating officer. And for me, I still wonder at the age of 18, you know, it makes me think, gosh, so many people's lives at stake at 18, navigating a destroyer around the Mediterranean on operational service and so on. I have one recollection of going at 30 knots, heading for Malta. We went quite difficult. There were no navigational aids, no lighthouses, no radar or anything of that sort. Somehow on the bridge we had a sort of premonition that we weren't quite doing the right thing, and we turned off on the searchlight, and there, right in front of us, was St Angelo Fort, literally. At 30 knots, so it was hard to starboard and make a slightly different entrance. And after after HMS Eastern, we were on our way. We were being refitted for the Far East, because the war was still going on there. We were an expendable destroyer, obviously, so we were on our way there when the first of the nuclear bombs was dropped, and that finished the war. So. Whereas some people said they should never have been dropped, we personally were very grateful for the fact that had happened, because the war in the Far East was a really bitter war actually still, and at sea as well. So we weren't unhappy. After that, I joined various other ships, frigates and landing craft. Landing craft, we were shipping German prisoners of war back from Ireland across to Scotland. With one of the least land frigates, we took it back to America in the middle of the winter, and our skipper was a brave man. He took us right down to the Azores, where we spent a couple of days, and he went and saw the consul and got some money. I hope I'm not offending anybody with this. Got some money. We had a few days ashore there before we went on to America, and ended up in Boston, where we dropped the gave this lease then ship back. And I came back on the Mauritania, and eventually I got, I was going to say decommissioned, but demobbed, that's right. So that was the story of my war, and I have to admit that it was a very exciting time. I never ever had the thought that I was likely to be demolished by a bomb or anything else. D-Day is one of those spectacular times, and it's very, I get very emotional when I go back there, partly because of the way we're treated, and partly because it was such a momentous time. I mean, around us there were landing craft on fire and bodies in the water and so on and so forth. And I know I'm skipping lightly over that side of it, but you know, this is the way we were supposed to be. We had learned how to do our job. It was a duty we had to perform, and liberating Europe obviously was a very, very acceptable task that we had to do. So we did it, and those of us who survived are very lucky, and when we go back to Normandy, we're obviously commemorating those who didn't make it.